deep within the United Nations, where the world's most powerful decisions are made behind layers of protocol and security. A private suite buzzed with tension, far from the public eye, its walls holding secrets that could alter the course of history. The world outside debated, voices rising in protest and hope, but here, the real stakes were life and death, decisions that would ripple across continents. The war in Gaza raged on, and the Arab leaders present carried the fury, grief, and desperation of their people, determined to demand action. They weren't here for empty words or photo ops, nor for the usual diplomatic dance that so often leads nowhere. They came to confront the one man they believed could stop the bloodshed, Donald J. Trump, once again President of the United States, whose decisions could tip the balance. Trump's reputation preceded him, transactional, unpredictable, and powerful, a leader who thrived on chaos and negotiation. The leaders needed more than promises. They needed a commitment, a guarantee that the United States would force a ceasefire and bring relief to Gaza. The silence in the room was electric, a calm before the storm, as each leader weighed their words and the risks of this confrontation. This wasn't a summit. It was an ambush, meticulously planned, every detail calculated to maximize pressure and urgency. The agenda was Gaza, the dead, the destruction, the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding hour by hour, demanding immediate action. The leaders faced a president who thrived on conflict, who saw every negotiation as a battle to be won, not a compromise to be reached. The question hung in the air. Who would win this confrontation, and at what cost? The stakes were nothing less than the future of the Middle East, a region already scarred by decades of conflict and fragile hope. The world would soon feel the impact of what happened behind this closed door, as history was written in whispers and hard bargains. The heavy oak door swung open with a sense of ceremony. Trump entered, commanding the room like a stage, every eye drawn to his unmistakable presence. The air seemed to shift, anticipation crackling as he crossed the threshold, his arrival impossible to ignore. Flanked by his closest advisors, he exuded an unshakable confidence, his stride purposeful and assured. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly, as if the very energy had been recalibrated by his arrival. He moved from leader to leader, shaking hands with a grip that was both firm and deliberate, his gaze unwavering, a calculated show of dominance and intent, signaling that he was here to lead, not to follow. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying authority. "Big day, important things happening." The words hung in the air, setting the tone for what was to come. He paced deliberately, making the others wait, controlling the tempo of the meeting with every step. It was a subtle power play, a reminder that he was in charge. This was classic Trump: own the room, set the narrative, and make sure everyone knew who was steering the conversation. The Arab leaders watched him closely, their faces unreadable, unmoved by his theatrics and bravado. They'd seen this act before, but today, the stakes were too high for games or empty gestures. Every word, every gesture mattered. Trump finally sat, leaning forward with intent. "A lot of trouble in the world, but that's why we're here, to fix it. I make the best deals." His confidence was unmistakable, his ambition clear. The challenge was clear. He'd framed the crisis as a problem only he could solve, positioning himself as the indispensable dealmaker. The leaders, however, refused to be drawn in, holding their silence, their expressions giving nothing away. The battle for control had begun, tension thickening the air as each side measured the other. Trump was ready for a deal, but only on his terms, determined to shape the outcome to his advantage. The leaders, equally resolute, were ready to push back, prepared to defend their interests and challenge his approach. The room was set for a confrontation that would test everyone's resolve, a high-stakes negotiation where every move counted. For a moment, the world's fate seemed to hang in the balance, the outcome uncertain, the stakes higher than ever before. The Saudi crown prince broke the silence, his words cutting through Trump's bravado. He spoke of Gaza's devastation, flattened neighborhoods, grieving families, hospitals in ruins. "This is not a war against Hamas," he said. "It's a war on the people of Gaza, Our populations are at a boiling point. The accusation was direct. American bombs, Arab blood. Trump's smile faded, replaced by a defensive scowl. He bristled at being lectured, especially by allies. Hamas started this, Trump shot back. They're monsters. They hide behind civilians. He retreated to talking points, terrorism, good versus evil. But the leaders refused to let him simplify the crisis. They forced him to confront the human cost, not just the politics. The room was tense, the lines drawn. Trump was uncomfortable, pushed onto moral ground. The leaders demanded more than rhetoric. They demanded action. The confrontation had truly begun. The Egyptian president countered, blunt and unyielding, his words echoing through the grand hall. He did not mince words or soften his tone, determined to make his point clear to all present. "The world sees a superpower enabling a massacre," he said, his voice carrying the weight of a region in turmoil. The accusation hung in the air, impossible to ignore. "Your support is the ammunition," he continued, directly linking American aid to the violence on the ground, making the consequences of policy unmistakable. The Emir of Qatar raised the humanitarian crisis, his words laced with warning. He subtly hinted at the future of U.S. bases in the region, suggesting that continued support could jeopardize long-standing alliances and military cooperation. The King of Jordan warned of instability threatening his own throne, his concern evident as he spoke of unrest spreading across borders and the fragility of his nation's stability. "This is existential for us, Donald," he said, his voice urgent, making it clear that the stakes were not just political, but personal and national. Trump, cornered by the United Front, tried to reframe the conversation. "Are you threatening me?" he asked, his tone defensive, searching for leverage. "After all I've done for you?" he pressed, frustration showing as he recalled years of support and deals made. The Saudi prince replied calmly, "Not a threat, a fact. We are simply stating the reality of the situation. If this continues, our governments may fall. Iran will win," he warned, pointing to the regional power balance and the risk of a dangerous shift. The message was clear. Trump's policy risked not just moral outrage, but a strategic disaster that could reshape the Middle East for generations. The argument shifted from morality to interests, winning and losing, survival and defeat, as leaders laid out the consequences in stark terms. The leaders made it clear, his current path led to defeat, not victory, and that unity among them was stronger than ever before. Trump began to listen, the reality sinking in as he weighed the risks and the warnings from every side. The pressure was relentless, the stakes unmistakable, with every leader in the room watching his next move. The leaders spoke with one voice: change course or lose everything, their unity a force Trump could not easily dismiss. Trump faced a choice: double down on his current approach, or make history by shifting direction and seeking a new path. The room waited for his answer, the silence heavy with anticipation and the weight of possible consequences. The world waited for a shift, eyes fixed on the outcome, knowing that what happened next could change the course of history. The confrontation gave way to negotiation. The Saudi prince offered Trump a historic prize-full Arab normalization with Israel, including Saudi Arabia. The catch: Trump must force Israel into a permanent ceasefire and a real path to a Palestinian state. This was the ultimate deal: legacy versus loyalty. Trump weighed the risks: alienate his base or become a peacemaker. The leaders dangled visions of a Nobel Prize, a place in history. Trump, ever the dealmaker, saw the opportunity. The offer was bold, the stakes enormous. The next move was his. Trump now faced a political tightrope. Publicly, he was Israel's staunchest ally. Privately, he was tempted by legacy. "Netanyahu will never agree," Trump mused. "My base will revolt." The Egyptian president was blunt. "You have the leverage. The question is, do you have the will?" The leaders challenged his strength, not just to support friends, but to make them do what's necessary. Trump was torn: historic peace or political safety. The tension was palpable. On one side, a legacy that could define his presidency. On the other, the loyalty of his base and alliance with Israel. The choice was stark ambition or allegiance. Trump's decision would shape the region and his own fate. The world watched for his next move. Motive no longer mattered to the Arab leaders, only results. Trump's ego was their tool. If it brought peace, so be it. He oscillated between boasting of his support for Israel and dreaming of a historic deal. The leaders played to his vanity, promising the Trump peace accords. The negotiation became psychological loyalty versus legacy. Trump's hunger for glory was the most powerful force in the room. The specifics faded. What mattered was his desire to be the greatest. The leaders offered him that chance. Would he seize it, risking everything? The answer would define history. As hours passed, confrontation turned to conspiracy. A tentative agreement formed. No signatures, just Trump's word. "We're going to do something big," he declared. "Everyone will be surprised." He promised action, but nothing concrete. The deal rested on trust and ambition. Trump would call for a humanitarian pause, then pressure Israel behind the scenes. The Arab leaders would prepare their people for a historic shift. They left cautiously optimistic, betting on Trump's desire for legacy. Trump, energized, hinted to aides he'd pulled off something incredible. "We're going to save the world," he boasted. It was both a promise and a performance. The line between the two was always blurred with Trump. The world would soon see if it was real. The stakes had never been higher. As the leaders vanished into New York's chaos, one question lingered. Was this the start of peace, or just another act in Trump's political theater? Everything depended on his unpredictable will. The risks were immense. Alliances, coalitions, even Trump's own party. The plan could collapse, or it could change history. Was this a turning point, or a mirage? The answer remained locked behind closed doors, waiting for the next move. History's next chapter was about to be written.